I took the night shift at the closed aquarium because I thought fish were easier than people. That was honestly the whole reason. Fish don't ask where your life is going. Fish don't care that you're 32, divorced, sleeping in a room above your uncle's garage, and applying for jobs with urgent start in the title because your bank account has started showing numbers that feel personal. Fish just swim. At least, that's what I thought. The aquarium was called Pelican Point Marine Center. It sat on the edge of the Gulf Coast, a few miles outside a tourist town that had once been bright and busy before the hotels moved closer to the new boardwalk and left the old waterfront to rot. Pelican Point had been closed to the public for almost 4 years. The website still existed, frozen in time. Smiling families, touch tanks, shark tunnel, jellyfish gallery, birthday party packages, a summer camp program, a photo of a little girl pressing both hands against the glass while a sea turtle swam past her face. Under the cheerful photos was a permanent notice: temporarily closed for renovations. 4 years is a long temporary. I found the job through a listing that didn't mention the name at first. Overnight facility monitor, closed marine exhibit site 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. No public access light maintenance, must follow site-specific procedures. Higher rate for night coverage. By then, higher rate was enough to make me ignore half the red flags. The man who called me was named Soren Pike. He said he was the facilities manager. His voice sounded like he hadn't slept properly in a decade. "You ever work around animals?" he asked. "Dogs, cats, a reptile store for 3 weeks. Marine animals? No, that's fine. Most of the public exhibits are empty." "Most? Some tanks are maintained for preservation and research storage." "What does that mean?" "It means don't feed anything unless a procedure tells you to." I laughed because I thought he was joking. He didn't laugh. That was becoming a pattern in my life. He told me to arrive at 7:15 p.m. before sunset, through the staff entrance on the south side. He said if I found the front doors unlocked, I should not enter through them. "Even if the lights are on?" I asked. "Especially if the lights are on," he said. I nearly backed out then. But the pay was good, and I had started telling myself that strange instructions were just how old facilities protected themselves from liability. Every abandoned building has weird rules. Every contractor has some old guy who thinks a leaky pipe is a personality. That was what I told myself all the way to Pelican Point. The aquarium looked worse in person than it did online. The main building was low and wide, shaped vaguely like a wave, with faded blue paint and big front windows filmed over with salt and dust. The old sign out front had lost several letters, so instead of Pelican Point Marine Center, it read PEICN Pew NT Mar Ne Si Entier. The parking lot was cracked. Weeds grew through the asphalt. A rusted metal sculpture of a dolphin leaned sideways near the entrance. The ticket booths were boarded shut. One of the front doors had a chain through the handles. The other front door stood open, just a few inches, dark inside. I stopped my car and stared at it. For a second, I almost got out and checked. Then I remembered Soren's voice. "If the front doors are unlocked, do not enter through them." I drove around to the south side. The staff entrance was a plain metal door near the loading dock, beneath a buzzing security light. A white van was parked beside it. Soren Pike stood under the light with his arms crossed, watching the sky instead of the road. He was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s. Thin, sharp-faced, with tired eyes and a beard that looked like he kept meaning to shave. He wore rubber boots, cargo pants, and a navy Pelican point jacket with the old logo on the chest. He looked at his watch as I stepped out. Cutting it close, it's 7:08. Sunset is 7:21. Shift starts at 8, not here. He unlocked the staff door and motioned me inside. The smell hit me first. Not bad, exactly. Salt water, bleach, wet concrete, old fish food, rust, something faintly sweet and rotten underneath. The staff corridor was dim and narrow. Pipes ran along the ceiling. Emergency lights glowed red at intervals. Somewhere deep inside the building, machinery hummed and water moved through filtration systems. That surprised me. I had expected silence. Soren saw my face. Closed doesn't mean dead. He led me through a series of back corridors. We passed offices with covered computers, storage rooms full of old posters, a staff break room with a vending machine that still had snacks inside, and a veterinary prep room with stainless steel counters and locked cabinets. Then we entered the public aquarium floor. Even with most of the lights off, the place was beautiful in a sick way. A wide central hall curved beneath a painted ceiling of ocean waves. Empty display windows lined the walls. Old signs still hung above exhibits. Coral reef habitat, mangrove nursery touch, tide pool gulf sharks, jellyfish drift. Most tanks were dark, some were drained, glass streaked with minerals. Some held shallow water and filtration pipes. A few still glowed faintly blue. In one, small silver fish moved together like a single thought. In another, jellyfish pulsed slowly under dim light. At the far end of the hall, two huge steel doors blocked off a darker wing. The sign above them read, "Abyssal Gallery, Deep Sea Immersion. Experience coming soon." A heavy chain crossed the handles. 3 padlocks held it shut. Soren saw me looking. "Deep tanks," he said. "Still active?" His eyes stayed on the doors. "Locked." "That's not what I asked. It's the answer that matters tonight." He took me to the security office. It sat behind the gift shop, which was still full of dusty plush turtles, plastic shark teeth, snow globes, postcards, and t-shirts that said, "I got splashed at Pelican Point." The security office had a desk, chair, camera monitors, an old intercom panel, a facility map, a radio base, a key cabinet, a cot, and a logbook. One wall had a narrow observation window looking out into the main hall. On the desk was a folder labeled Night Procedures. Soren pointed to the monitors. Cameras cover front lobby, main hall, reef gallery, shark tunnel, jellyfish room, loading dock, filtration level, roof access, and deep gallery doors. Some feeds cut out between 2 and 3. Don't reset them unless the instructions say to. What am I actually doing? Hourly rounds, check for leaks, alarms, open doors, temperature spikes, trespassers, and animal distress. I thought most animals were gone. Most. What's still here? Fish, jellyfish. One rescued sea turtle in rehab, quarantine specimens, research storage. Research storage meaning animals? Soren took too long to answer. Meaning things that require water. That did not make me feel better. He showed me the main route. Security office, gift shop, lobby, main hall, reef gallery, turtle rehab, jellyfish room, shark tunnel entrance, filtration stairwell, back to security office. Do not enter abyssal gallery. Do not open deep tank wing. Do not go below filtration level unless water alarms require it. Then he opened the Night Procedures folder. The first pages were normal. Emergency contacts, fire evacuation, power outage, flood response, animal escape protocol, trespasser policy. Then came a divider tab marked After Public Closure. Those pages were handwritten. Not all by the same person, some neat, some rushed, some with water stains. One page was laminated, one was copied from a torn notebook. Another had been written on the back of an old aquarium map. Soren placed the stack in front of me. These matter more than the printed procedures. I stared at him. Why do all these jobs have rules? His eyes narrowed. All what jobs? Never mind. Read them. I looked down. The heading on the first handwritten page said, Pelican Point Night Instructions left by aquarists, facilities, and security. Read before first round. The deep tanks stay locked for a reason. There were 27 instructions. Instruction 1. Enter and leave only through the south staff door after sunset. Instruction 2. The front lobby lights should remain off. If they turn on, do not look through the ticket windows. Instruction 3. Do not tap on any glass, even empty tanks. Instruction 4. If a tank that was empty during your last round has water in it, mark it on the map and continue walking. Instruction 5. If you hear splashing from the touch tide pool, do not put your hands in. Instruction 6. The shark tunnel is drained. If you see water overhead, turn around and return to security. Instruction 7. If the sea turtle is facing the corner, do not speak until she turns around. Instruction 8. If jellyfish spell words, record only the first word. Instruction 9. Do not feed anything that asks. Instruction 10. If the intercom plays whale song, mute channel 3 and wait for 3 clicks. Instruction 11. If a child is visible in the main hall after closing, check the monitors before approaching. Instruction 12. If the gift shop snow globes contain moving water, place them face down. Instruction 13. At 12:12 a.m., do not look at the large ocean mural. Instruction 14. If Soren radios and tells you to unlock the deep gallery, ask him what happened to Tank D. If he says, pressure crack, keep the doors locked. Instruction 15. The deep gallery has 4 tanks. If you count 5 doors, end your round immediately. Instruction 16. Do not answer knocking from inside the diving locker. Instruction 17. If salt water runs uphill, step onto the nearest bench until it drains. Instruction 18. If the filtration pumps stop and you hear breathing through the vents, restart pump 2 only. Instruction 19. If the octopus appears on any monitor, cover the screen until the feed changes. We do not have an octopus. Instruction 20. If a wet handprint appears on the inside of the security office window, shut the blinds and count the keys. Instruction 21. If the building map changes, copy the new route into the log before sunrise. Instruction 22. If a voice from a tank uses your name, answer with your job title only. Instruction 23. If the deep gallery doors are open, do not close them from the hallway. Return to security and call Soren. Instruction 24. If the emergency exit signs point downward, follow none of them. Instruction 25. If you smell low tide in a dry room, leave before the floor softens. Instruction 26. If the lights in the abyssal gallery turn blue, put on the black ear protectors before checking the cameras. Instruction 27. If any deep tank glass shows your reflection standing behind you, do not turn around. I looked up slowly. Soren waited. I said, absolutely not. He nodded. Fair. No, I mean it. I'm not doing this. He closed the folder. South door is behind you. Leave before sunset if you're leaving. The same thing again. A way out. A clean one. No guilt. No trap. Just the old rule of bad places. They warn you before they own your fear. I looked toward the monitor showing my car outside. I looked at the folder. Then I thought of my bank account, my uncle's garage, my ex-wife telling me I always quit when things got uncomfortable. I hated that she was sometimes right. So I stayed. Soren did not look pleased. That bothered me. If this had been some prank, if he had wanted to scare me, he would have smiled. Instead, he looked tired. He took a key ring from the cabinet and set it on the desk. South door, security office, utility closets, turtle room, filtration level, exterior gates, nothing for abyssal. Because the deep gallery keys are separate? No, he said, because you won't need them. He showed me a pair of black industrial ear protectors hanging beside the monitors. Instruction 26, if those blue lights come on, put these on before looking at the abyssal cameras. What am I listening for? You're not listening for anything. That's the point. Before leaving, he stopped at the security office door. One instruction not written there. Of course. If you hear something large move in water and every tank near you is dry, kneel. Kneel? Yes. Why? Because things that big notice height first. He left at 7:19, 2 minutes before sunset. I watched him walk down the staff corridor on the monitor, badge out, head down, moving fast. The south staff door closed behind him. The lock clicked. The aquarium became mine. For the first hour, I convinced myself it was just creepy because it was abandoned. That is easy to do in places built for crowds. A closed aquarium feels wrong because it was designed around movement and wonder. The hallways are wide so families can gather. The exhibits are lit to make people stop. The signs are bright. The glass is huge. The whole building expects children pointing, parents reading plaques, staff answering questions, water shimmering under cheerful music. Without people, it feels like a stage after the play ended, but before the actors left. Too many places to stand. Too many things watching from glass. I logged the start of shift. 8 p.m. began shift. South staff door locked. Lobby lights off. Deep gallery doors locked. Main systems normal. At 8:30, I did my first round. Gift shop. Dusty, still, stupid. I checked the snow globes because instruction 12 had made me paranoid. Each one showed a tiny cartoon aquarium with glitter frozen at the bottom. No moving water. Lobby, dark. Ticket windows covered by metal shutters. Good. Main hall. The central tanks were mostly empty. The coral reef tank had water, but no coral, only bare rock and a few nervous fish. The mangrove tank smelled like damp wood. The touch tide pool was covered with a mesh lid. No splashing. Turtle rehab. A large rescued sea turtle floated in a shallow medical pool under dim light. Her name, according to a laminated sign, was Beatrice. She was old, scarred, and huge. One front flipper was missing a chunk. Her eyes were open. She faced me. I gave her a respectful nod, then immediately felt stupid. Jellyfish room. 3 cylindrical tanks glowed blue. Jellyfish pulsed slowly. Translucent bells opening and closing like breathing flowers. No words. Shark tunnel. Drained, dry acrylic tunnel. Empty overhead. I stepped in only far enough to check the floor. Filtration stairwell. Locked. No alarms. Back to security. I logged. 8:30 p.m. First round complete. No changes. At 9:07, the front lobby lights turned on. I saw it on the monitor first. The lobby had been dark. Then the ceiling lights blinked awake one row at a time, filling the ticket area with sickly white light. Instruction 2. The front lobby lights should remain off. If they turn on, do not look through the ticket windows. I stayed in the security office. On the monitor, the lobby looked empty. The ticket windows were visible from the camera, but the instruction said, do not look through them. Did that include looking through the monitor? I decided yes. I covered the lobby feed with a clipboard. A few seconds later, someone knocked on the ticket window. I heard it through the walls. Tap, tap, tap. Then a muffled voice. One adult. I did not move. Another knock. One adult, one child. The ticket printer in the security office turned on. It sat on a side shelf, unplugged. It printed one ticket, then a second. The paper slid out with a soft mechanical buzz. I did not touch them. The lobby lights clicked off. Only then did I remove the clipboard. The monitor showed darkness again. The ticket windows were empty. On the side shelf, the two printed tickets read, Admit 1, Abyssal Gallery, Admit 1, Abyssal Gallery. I placed them face down in the trash and logged it. 9:07 p.m. Lobby lights turned on. Ticket window knocked. Ticket printer activated. No visual through window. At 9:43, I heard splashing from the touch-tide pool. It was a shallow exhibit in the main hall, designed for children to touch rays and small, harmless creatures. Now it was covered with a mesh lid and supposedly empty. The splashing was small at first, then playful, like hands slapping water. Instruction 5. If you hear splashing from the touch-tide pool, do not put your hands in. I stood 10 feet away with my flashlight. The mesh cover rattled. Something underneath bumped it. Water dripped over the edge. But when I aimed the light through the mesh, the tide pool was dry, no water, no animal. The splashing continued. A child giggled from inside the empty basin. Cold. I backed away. The giggle became several children. A little hand pressed up through the mesh. Wet fingers. Then another. Then another. All small. All pale. I did not touch them. The splashing stopped after a minute. The hands withdrew. The tide pool was dry again. At 10:00, Soren radioed. Security, Soren. I picked up. Security. Status, lobby lights, ticket window, printer, splashing from dry touch, tide pool, no contact. Pause. Good. Why does everyone say good like that? Because you're alive to hear it. I rubbed my eyes. What happened here? Ask me after you finish the first night. What happened to Tank D? Silence. Then Soren said, Don't ask that unless I tell you to unlock the deep gallery. Why? Because the building hears practice. That was another thing men like him always said. The place hears practice. The tower likes rehearsals. The course remembers the rule. The station responds to procedure. Every bad place had its own version of the same lesson. Don't teach it what you'll ask later. At 10:36, the gift shop snow globes changed. I was on my second round when I saw movement. The little aquarium snow globes on the display rack were full of water now, not glitter. Water. It swirled inside each glass dome, dark and cloudy, tiny waves slapping against the miniature buildings. Instruction 12. If the gift shop snow globes contain moving water, place them face down. There were at least 30 of them. I put on nitrile gloves from the checkout counter, because touching anything directly felt stupid now, then began turning the snow globes over one by one. As each globe went face down, the water inside stopped moving. On the 11th globe, something inside tapped the glass. A tiny diver. no bigger than a plastic toy. He floated in the water, pounding one hand against the inside of the dome. I turned it over. His tapping stopped. On the 19th, the miniature aquarium inside had its deep gallery doors open. I turned it over fast. On the last globe, water sloshed harder than the rest. Inside was not the cartoon aquarium. It was a tiny version of the security office. And inside that tiny office, a miniature me sat at the desk, turning a snow globe over. I almost dropped it. The tiny me looked up, then lifted one hand and pressed it against the glass from inside. I put the globe face down. The shelf went still. At 11:11, the jellyfish spelled a word. I saw it on the camera before I entered the room. The jellyfish in Tank 2 had arranged themselves in a loose shape. Letters. Instruction 8. If jellyfish spell words, record only the first word. The word was below. I wrote it in the log. 11:11 p.m. Jellyfish formed word below. When I returned to the monitor, the jellyfish had formed a second word. Open. I did not write it. Then a third. Tank. I did not write it. Then a fourth. D. I looked away. The room lights flickered. At 11:40, the sea turtle faced the corner. Beatrice floated at the far end of her medical pool, her shell turned toward me, head pointed into the tiled corner of the rehab room. Instruction 7. If the sea turtle is facing the corner, do not speak until she turns around. So I stood silently in the doorway. The room smelled like salt water and iodine. Beatrice remained still. Minutes passed. My flashlight beam trembled. Then a voice came from the corner. Not Beatrice. Something behind the corner. Ask her. I did not speak. The turtle's flippers moved slowly. The voice whispered, "She saw it." Beatrice turned. Not fast, not frightened, deliberately. Her old eyes found me. Only then did I exhale. I backed out of the room without saying a word. At midnight, the intercom played whale song. Deep, mournful notes rolled through the building. The walls vibrated. The water in every tank trembled. Instruction 10. If the intercom plays whale song, mute channel 3 and wait for 3 clicks. The intercom panel in the security office had 3 channel sliders. 1. Staff. 2. Public hall. 3. Deep gallery. Channel 3 was active. I muted it. The whale song cut off mid-note. Click. I waited. Click. The monitor showing the deep gallery doors flickered blue. Click. After the 3rd click, every camera feed went back to normal. Except the abyssal gallery camera. That feed had been black all night because the doors were locked and the hallway beyond was unlit. Now it showed blue light seeping under the deep gallery doors. Instruction 26. If the lights in the abyssal gallery turn blue, put on the black ear protectors before checking the cameras. I put them on. The world became muffled, my breathing loud, my heartbeat louder. I selected the abyssal camera. The feed opened. At first, it showed only the locked steel doors from the inside. That made no sense. The camera should have been outside, pointing at the doors. Instead, I was seeing from the other side, from inside the deep gallery. Blue emergency lighting filled a long corridor. 4 heavy viewing windows lined the left wall. Tank A, Tank B, Tank C, Tank D. Each window was covered by metal shutters. At the end of the corridor stood another door. No label, no 5th tank. Good. Then the camera moved. It should not have moved. It turned slowly toward Tank D. The shutter over Tank D's glass was dented outward. From inside, something large shifted in water. The sound did not reach me through the ear protectors, but I felt it in the desk. A pressure wave. the Tank D shutter bulged again. On the glass behind it, a shape appeared. Not the thing inside. My reflection, standing in the corridor, inside the camera feed. Behind me in the reflection stood Soren Pike. He raised one finger to his lips. "Do not turn around," Instruction 27 said. "If any deep tank glass shows your reflection standing behind you, do not turn around." I stared at the monitor. The Soren reflection leaned closer to reflect at me. His mouth moved. I could not hear through the ear protectors. The real security office behind me felt suddenly occupied. I kept my eyes on the screen. The reflection of Soren smiled. Then he pointed down. On the camera feed, water began running along the deep gallery floor. Uphill. Instruction 17. If salt water runs uphill, step onto the nearest bench until it drains. There was no bench in the security office, but there was one in the main hall. I left the monitors on, stood carefully, and walked out without turning around. The ear protectors muffled everything. Behind me, in the security office, something wet stepped once. I did not turn. I went into the main hall and climbed onto the nearest visitor bench. Salt water seeped from under the deep gallery doors. It flowed across the floor against gravity, rising slightly over tile ridges, running uphill toward the security office. It smelled deep. Not ocean smell, not beach smell, cold pressure and dead things. The water curled around the base of my bench, then drained backward all at once under the deep gallery doors. I stayed on the bench until the floor was dry. When I returned to the security office, still wearing the ear protectors, the room was empty. The abyssal camera feed was black again. I took the ear protectors off. The first thing I heard was whispering from the radio, my own name, Marcus. Instruction 22. If a voice from a tank uses your name, answer with your job title only. I picked up the radio. Night security. The whisper paused, then said, temporary. My mouth went dry. Night security, I repeated. The radio clicked off. At 12:12 a.m., I forgot the mural. The large ocean mural covered the far wall of the main hall. I had barely noticed it earlier because it was exactly the kind of thing aquariums paint for kids. Bright blue water, smiling dolphins, sea turtles, coral, sunlight streaming down through waves. A whale in the distance. Instruction 13. At 12:12 a.m., do not look at the large ocean mural. I remembered at 12:12 because the mural changed. The colors darkened at the edge of my vision. I turned my head before I could stop myself. The painted ocean was no longer bright. It was deep, black blue. No dolphins, no coral, no sunlight, just open water descending into dark. A figure floated in the center of the mural, a diver in an old aquarium wetsuit. One hand pressed against the painted surface from the inside. His face was hidden behind a cracked mask. Air bubbles rose around him, painted bubbles, moving. The diver lifted his other hand. He pointed toward the deep gallery doors. Then he began to sink, not down the wall, into it, back into painted darkness. I looked away, too late. The building groaned. Every tank in the aquarium shuddered. The intercom clicked. A voice said, "Visitor has entered the abyssal gallery." No, no one had entered. The deep gallery doors remained chained on the monitor. Then I saw the camera feed of the main hall. I was standing in front of the mural. But behind me, reflected in the darkened paint, the deep gallery doors were open. And something inside was waiting at the threshold. The thing inside the reflection waited at the threshold of the deep gallery. Not on the monitor, Not in the actual hallway, in the mural. The painted ocean on the wall had become a dark window, and in that window I could see the abyssal gallery doors standing open behind me. Blue light spilled from beyond them. Salt water ran over the floor. Something stood just inside the doorway, tall enough that its head disappeared above the frame. I did not turn around. Instruction 27. If any deep tank glass shows your reflection standing behind you, do not turn around. The mural was not deep tank glass, but I had learned by then that this building liked technicalities, and technicalities were usually bait. I kept my eyes on the floor. My heart beat so hard I could feel it in my throat. The intercom crackled overhead. Visitor has entered the abyssal gallery. No visitor. No one had entered. The doors were chained. I had seen them on the monitor. 3 padlocks. Heavy chain. Nothing open except the reflection in a painted ocean. The intercom repeated, "Visitor has entered the abyssal gallery." Then a child's voice came through, soft, muffled, like it was speaking through water. "Mom?" The mural behind me made a wet sound, paint peeling, or something pressing against it from the other side. I walked backward toward the security office, still facing the floor. I passed the bench, the empty reef tank, the gift shop entrance. The air smelled colder now, deeper, like old seawater trapped in a pipe. The child's voice followed through the intercom. "Mom, I can't see you." I shut the security office door behind me and locked it. The monitors showed the main hall. The deep gallery doors were closed, chained, locked. No blue light under them, no water, no figure. Then I looked at the mural feed. The hallway camera showed me standing in front of the painted ocean, but the mural in the camera still reflected the deep gallery doors open, and the thing at the threshold had moved closer. I covered the monitor with the clipboard. My hands shook so badly the clipboard rattled against the screen. The radio crackled. Soren's voice came through. "Security, Soren." I stared at the radio. After everything that had happened, even his voice felt like a trap. "Security," I said. "Status." I swallowed. Mural changed at 12:12. I looked at it by accident. Intercom reported a visitor in abyssal. Reflection showed the deep gallery open. Actual doors remain locked on camera. Silence. Then Soren said, "Did you turn around?" "No." "Did you approach the doors?" "No." "Good." "What's in there?" "4 tanks." "That's not what I asked." "It's the answer that keeps you alive." I gripped the radio. "Soren, I saw something standing in the doorway." "What did it look like?" "I don't know. Tall. Bigger than a person." "Did it have lights?" "What?" "In the head. Did you see lights?" "I didn't look long enough." "Good." I hated that word now. "Soren, what happened to Tank D?" The radio hissed. He did not answer. Then he said, "I have not told you to unlock the deep gallery." "I know." "Then don't ask." The line clicked. I thought he had hung up. Then his voice returned, lower. "If you hear me tell you to unlock it tonight, ask the question. Only then." "Why?" "Because the answer changes depending on who says it first." The radio went dead. At 12:36, the emergency exit signs changed. There were green exit signs throughout the public hall, mostly dark except for emergency power. They had pointed toward the staff corridors and main lobby all night. Now, on the monitors, every arrow pointed down. Not left, not right, down. Instruction 24. If the emergency exit signs point downward, follow none of them. Easy enough, I thought, until the floor under the security office desk softened. At first, I thought water had leaked in. The chair sank slightly. The wheels pressed into the floor as if the linoleum had turned to mud. A smell filled the room. Low tide, rotting seaweed, mud flats, dead crabs. Instruction 25. If you smell low tide in a dry room, leave before the floor softens. I was too late. The floor was already soft. I stood quickly, but the soles of my shoes stuck. The linoleum stretched upward in strings like wet skin. The floor gave under me, not collapsing yet, but yielding. The exit sign above the office door flickered. Its arrow pointed straight down. I stepped onto the chair, then onto the desk. The desk leg sank 2 inches. The monitors flickered. On one screen, the main hall was empty. On another, the same hall was underwater. Fish moved past the gift shop windows. Plastic sharks floated from shelves. Snow globes tumbled through cloudy water. The security office door seemed far away from the desk, even though it was only a few feet. I jumped. My shoulder slammed into the door. I grabbed the handle, yanked it open, and stumbled into the gift shop. The floor there was solid. Behind me, the security office floor sagged downward like something heavy had pulled at it from below. Then it snapped back flat. The low tide smell vanished. The exit signs returned to normal. My desk chair sat in the office like nothing had happened, but my footprints remained in the floor, not on it, in it, pressed deep into the linoleum like wet sand. At 12:51, the octopus appeared. I was still standing in the gift shop, trying to decide if I could safely return to the office, when the monitors caught my eye through the security window. Every screen showed the same image. An octopus, not in a tank, not underwater, pressed against the camera lens from the inside of the feed. A pale red body, one huge eye, arms spreading across the glass, suckers opening and closing. Instruction 19. If the octopus appears on any monitor, cover the screen until the feed changes. We do not have an octopus. I grabbed the old Pelican Point t-shirt from the gift shop rack and threw it over the monitor bank. It slid off. The octopus eye followed me. I took more shirts, plush turtles, a beach towel. I covered every screen. The towel began to move. Suckers pressed outward from underneath it, making round wet marks in the fabric. Something clicked behind the monitors, beak against glass. I stood there holding the towel in place with both hands until the movement stopped. When I lifted one corner, the feeds were normal again, mostly. The abyssal gallery door camera now showed 4 padlocks on the chain. There had been 3. At 1:07, a child appeared in the main hall. Instruction 11. If a child is visible in the main hall after closing, check the monitors before approaching. I saw her first through the security window. A little girl stood near the touch-tide pool, maybe 8 years old, wearing a yellow raincoat, though no rain had fallen inside. Her hair was plastered wet to her cheeks. She held one of the admission tickets that had printed earlier. Admit 1, Abyssal Gallery. She looked toward the deep gallery doors. I forced myself to check the monitors. Main hall camera showed no child. Gift shop camera showed no child. Lobby camera showed something else. A woman stood outside the ticket windows, facing inward. Adult, soaked, hands against the glass. Her mouth moved. No audio. The main hall outside the security office still showed the girl, so the camera said she was not there. My eyes said she was. That meant, do not approach. Probably. The girl lifted the ticket. Excuse me? I did not answer. She turned toward the security office window. Is the deep tour starting soon? No, no, no. Instruction 9. Do not feed anything that asks. She had not asked for food. Instruction 18 from another place did not matter. This was not another place. I looked at the rules again. There was no direct instruction for a child asking about the deep tour. The girl walked closer. Water dripped from the hem of her raincoat, leaving little dark spots on the tile. I lost my mom. I kept the security office door closed. She pressed the ticket to the window. On the monitor, the lobby woman pressed both hands to the ticket glass and mouthed, "Don't let her in." The girl smiled. Not at me, at the monitor, as if she knew I was watching both. Then she turned and walked toward the deep gallery. I pressed the radio. "Soren." No answer. The girl reached the steel doors. The chain hung locked, 4 padlocks. She raised one small hand and knocked. Tap, tap, tap. The padlocks clicked. 1, 2, 3, 4. They did not open. They simply clicked, like something inside had checked them. The girl looked back at me. Her face was no longer wet. It was pale and swollen, as if she had been underwater too long. Mom said I could go. The intercom crackled. A woman's voice, the woman from the lobby camera, screamed, "No, I didn't." The girl's smile widened. Then she vanished. So did the woman on the lobby feed. On the tile where the girl had stood, there was only a puddle shaped like a child. In the security office, the ticket printer activated again. 1 ticket slid out. Admit 1. Abyssal Gallery Group. Entry 42. I burned it in the metal trash can. The smoke smelled like brine. At 1:30, the filtration pump stopped. The whole building noticed before I did. The constant mechanical hum that had lived in the walls all night vanished. The aquarium went silent in a way no building with water systems should ever be silent. Then breathing came through the vents. Slow, deep, wet. Instruction 18. If the filtration pumps stop and you hear breathing through the vents, restart pump 2 only. I grabbed the filtration keys and ran. The filtration level was down 1 flight behind a heavy staff door near the shark tunnel. The stairwell air was humid and hot. Emergency lights made the walls red. The breathing grew louder as I descended. In, out, like the building itself had lungs. The filtration room was huge compared to the others. Pipes ran everywhere, overhead and along walls. Sand filters, pump housings, UV sterilizers, chemical tanks, control panels, water gauges. Most of the public exhibits may have been empty, but the system had been built for thousands of gallons, maybe millions, and it still pulsed with pressure. Pump 1 was dark. Pump 2 was dark. Pump 3 was dark. The panel showed system fault across every line. I located pump 2, only pump 2. The start button was slick with condensation. The breathing through the vents deepened. In, out. Something moved inside the duct above me. Large, fleshy, sliding against metal. I pressed pump 2, nothing. I pressed again. The duct dented outward. A wet handprint appeared from the inside of the vent. Then another. The breathing paused. Pump 2 started. The entire filtration room shook as the motor caught. Pipes hammered. Water surged through lines. The handprints in the duct smeared sideways and disappeared. The breathing stopped. Behind me, a tank gauge labeled Abyssal D rose from 0 to pressure, then beyond pressure. The needle trembled at the red line. I backed away. A voice came from inside the pipes, not through the vents, through the water. Night security. Instruction 22. If a voice from a tank uses your name, answer with your job title only. It had used my job title first. I said nothing. The voice in the pipes continued. Temporary. I turned to leave. Every pipe in the room knocked once. At the top of the stairs, the door to the main hall had become a hatch. Not the same door, a round submarine-style hatch with a wheel in the center. It had not been there when I came down. I checked the emergency exit sign. The arrow pointed down. Instruction 24, follow none of them, so I did not take the marked stairwell farther down. I spun the wheel on the hatch and pushed. It opened into the shark tunnel, the drained shark tunnel. Except water hung overhead again. Instruction 6, the shark tunnel is drained. If you see water overhead, turn around and return to security. The problem was that the hatch had opened into the tunnel behind me. The only route to security was through it. Above the clear acrylic arch, water rippled. Not much, maybe a foot deep. Fish moved through it. Then a shark passed overhead. Huge, gray, silent. The tunnel itself was dry, but the water above pressed against the acrylic like the entire ocean waited there. I turned around. The hatch behind me was gone. So I returned to security the only way left. Backward, eyes down, step by step. I refused to look up at the water overhead. The shark followed. I heard it without hearing it. A pressure, a shadow crossing my shoes. The tunnel lights flickered. A voice above me, muffled by water and acrylic, whispered my name. Marcus, Instruction 22. If a voice from a tank uses your name, answer with your job title only. Night security. The shark slammed into the acrylic above me. The whole tunnel boomed. I fell to one knee. Soren's extra rule. If you hear something large move in water and every tank near you is dry, kneel. I was already kneeling. The shark slid overhead. Its eye looked down through the acrylic. It was not a shark's eye. It was human. I crawled the last 10 feet out of the tunnel. When I reached the main hall and looked back, the shark tunnel was dry. Empty. Dead. At 2:06, Soren radioed. Security, Soren. I was back in the office, soaked in sweat, hands still shaking from the filtration room. Security. Did pump 2 restart? I stopped. How did you know? Because I'm watching pressure. From where? Off-site. Are you? Silence. Then Soren said, good question. What happened to Tank D? He did not answer. Instead, he said, do you still have 4 padlocks on the deep gallery? I checked the monitor. The chain across the abyssal gallery doors now held 5 padlocks. 5. Instruction 15. The deep gallery has 4 tanks. If you count 5 doors, end your round immediately. Not 5 doors, 5 padlocks. Still, the number felt wrong. 5 locks, I said. Soren cursed softly. That means it's counting out. What does that mean? It means it knows you know 4 is correct. The intercom clicked overhead. A calm, recorded voice said, Abyssal Gallery tour begins in 5 minutes. I looked at the camera. The steel doors remained locked. Blue light seeped underneath. Soren said, put on the ear protectors. I did. His voice became muffled through the radio, almost impossible to hear. I lifted one side slightly. He said, no, keep them on. Watch the monitors. Do not listen. I put the ear cover back. The radio became a distant buzz. The intercom continued saying something I refused to hear. On the monitor, the deep gallery doors changed. Not opened. Changed. The chain remained, but the doors behind it became glass. Beyond them was the abyssal corridor, blue lit, underwater maybe, though the floor looked dry. Tanka shutter lifted. Inside was darkness. Then small lights appeared, hundreds of them, not bulbs, eyes. Tank B shutter lifted. Inside, a diver floated upside down, tether wrapped around his ankle. His mask was cracked. Air bubbles drifted from his mouth. Tank C shutter lifted, empty. But the water inside pressed outward against the glass, bulging it. Tank D remained shuttered. The fifth door appeared at the end of the corridor. Instruction 15. If you count 5 doors, end your round immediately. I was not on a round. I was in security. But I counted 5 doors on the monitor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. End your round immediately. What did that mean when the round was already over? Maybe return to the table? No table. Maybe stop watching. I covered the deep gallery feed. The moment I did, something hit the security office window from the main hall side. A wet handprint appeared on the inside of the glass. Inside. My side. Instruction 20. If a wet handprint appears on the inside of the security office window, shut the blinds and count the keys. I shut the blinds, then grabbed the key ring. South door, security office, utility closets, turtle room, filtration level, exterior gates, 6 keys. I counted again. 6, again, 6. Then a 7th key slid out from between the others. Black, long, wet, no label. I did not touch it directly. I used a pen to separate it from the ring and drop it into the trash can with the burned ticket. The moment it hit the ash, something behind the blinds exhaled against the glass. I counted the keys again. 6. Good. I took off the ear protectors. The intercom was silent. Soren's voice came through the radio. Did a black key appear? Yes. Did you keep it? No. Good. I closed my eyes. Stop saying that. Stop surviving correctly. What is the black key for? The 5th door. I looked at the covered monitor. There shouldn't be a 5th door. No, but there is. That's why you don't keep the key. At 2:33, the deep gallery doors opened. Not on the monitor. Actually, I heard the chain fall. Heavy metal hitting tile, then padlocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All striking the floor outside the abyssal gallery. Instruction 23. If the deep gallery doors are open, do not close them from the hallway. Return to security and call Soren. I was already in security. I called Soren. Doors open. He didn't answer. Soren. Static. Then his voice came through. Unlock the deep gallery. My blood went cold. Instruction 14. If Soren radios and tells you to unlock the deep gallery, ask him what happened to Tank D. If he says, pressure crack, keep the doors locked. But the doors were already open. Still, the instruction was clear enough. What happened to Tank D? A pause. Then Soren said, pressure crack. I kept the doors as they were, open, not unlocked by me, not touched. The radio, Soren said, you have to secure the gallery. I did not move. What happened to Tank D? I asked again. The voice sharpened. Pressure crack. I lowered the radio volume. The real Soren's voice came faintly under it. Don't go. The fake voice kept talking over him. Security protocol requires door closure. The real voice, weak under static, said, Tank D did not crack. I stood frozen. The fake Soren said, close the doors. The real Soren said, it opened. The radio screamed with feedback, then died. The main hall outside the office glowed blue. The deep gallery doors stood open at the far end. Beyond them, the abyssal corridor waited. I did not go close them. I sat in the security office with the blind shut and the monitor covered. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. Then water began rising under the office door, cold, salt, slow. The floor did not soften this time. The water simply filled the room inch by inch. The exit signs outside pointed downward. I followed none of them. The water reached my ankles. then my shins. The intercom clicked. The child in the raincoat whispered, "Tour group is waiting." I climbed onto the desk. The water reached the chair, then the desktop. The monitors sparked, but did not die. On the covered deep gallery screen, the towel shifted. Something underneath it pressed outward. A hand, then another, many hands. The radio crackled from under the rising water. Soren's real voice came through. "Marcus, listen carefully. If the office floods, the only dry place will be the abyssal gallery." I laughed once. I couldn't help it. "No, I know. No, it's not telling you to enter. I am." "How do I know?" "Ask." "What happened to Tank D?" Soren breathed shakily, then said, "It opened during the sleepover." The water stopped rising. "What?" 42 people were in the building, overnight education program, staff, children, parents. Abyssal Gallery was not open to the public yet. Tank D was under pressure test. There was something in it we did not understand. The intercom hissed. The child whispered, "We had tickets," Soren continued. The glass didn't crack. It opened inward, like a door. Water came out. Something else came with it. The official report said flood, structural failure, panic. I wrote the first rules because I locked the doors from the outside. I stared at the open hallway glowing blue. "You trapped them." "I trapped what was with them." The water in the office rose another inch. Soren's voice broke. "I also trapped them." The radio crackled. "If you stay in security, it drowns you into the cameras. If you enter the gallery, you may be able to shut Tank D." "How?" "Black ear protectors. No looking at reflections. No counting doors. No answering names." "And Marcus?" "What?" "If you see me inside, I'm either dead or lying." The water rose over the desk. The radio died. I put on the black ear protectors. I opened the security office door. Water poured out around me into the main hall, rushing downhill toward the open abyssal gallery. Salt water ran uphill. I stepped onto the bench and waited until it drained. Then I climbed down. The aquarium lights were blue now. All of them. Every tank glowed. Even the empty ones held water. Behind the glass of the coral reef tank, shapes moved. Not fish. People. Floating upright. Watching. I kept my eyes forward. The deep gallery doors stood open. The chain lay on the floor. 5 padlocks rested beside it. The black key sat on top of them. It had somehow left the trash can. I did not pick it up. I stepped into the abyssal gallery. The ear protectors turned the world into heartbeat and muffled water pressure. The corridor looked exactly like the camera feed. Blue lights, 4 tank windows on the left, metal shutters, a 5th door at the end. I did not count them. I looked only at the floor directly ahead. Tank A was open behind its glass. Tiny lights moved in darkness. They pulsed like stars, or eyes. Tank B held the upside-down diver. I saw his boots at the edge of my vision. He tapped the glass. I kept walking. Tank C was empty. That was somehow worse. At Tank D, I stopped. The shutter was half open. Behind the thick glass was black water. No light penetrated more than a few inches. On the glass, my reflection stood, and behind my reflection stood Soren Pike. I did not turn around. Reflected Soren leaned close. His mouth moved. I could not hear. Good. He pointed to the 5th door. No. No 5th door. Do not count it. Do not look at it. I looked at the Tank D control panel beside the shutter. 3 buttons. Open. Close. Pressure, equalize. The close button was covered by a clear plastic guard. Behind the glass, something huge moved. not toward me, past me. So large it took several seconds for its shape to stop passing. I knelt. Soren's extra rule. Something that big notices height first. My reflection knelt too. The reflected Soren behind me did not. He stayed standing. The thing in Tank D stopped. A pale light appeared in the water. Then another. Eyes. Not two. Many. Arranged in a slow curve. The reflected Soren placed one hand on my reflected shoulder. I felt fingers on my real shoulder. Wet. Cold. I did not turn. The Tank D glass showed my reflection smiling. I was not smiling. Reflected me raised one hand toward the open button. My real hand stayed on the floor. The reflection wanted to become instruction. I crawled under the control panel, reached up without looking at the glass, and flipped the guard over the close button. The corridor shook. The fifth door at the end opened. I knew because blue light changed, because water pressure shifted, because something beyond it began to breathe. The reflected Soren's hand tightened on my shoulder. I pressed close. Nothing happened. The button did not move. Locked, of course, the black key. Behind me, from the direction of the corridor, the child's voice came through the ear protectors. Impossible. Mom? I almost looked. Instead, I stared at the floor. There, in the reflection of a shallow puddle, I saw the black key lying beside the padlocks outside the gallery doors. Too far away, something slid along the floor toward me. Metal scraping tile. The black key came to a stop beside my knee. No, no, no. The fifth door breathed. The thing in Tank D watched. The reflected Soren smiled. I picked up the key with 2 fingers. The moment I touched it, every blue light turned off. The gallery went black. In the darkness, my ear protectors filled with whale song. Low, deep, impossible to block. It vibrated through my skull. The key was warm, alive, warm. I felt for the control panel, found the keyhole beneath the close button, inserted the black key, turned it. The button clicked. A voice inside the tank said my name. Marcus, I answered with the only safe words I had left. Night security. Then I pressed close. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then Tank D screamed. Not from speakers. Not through the water. Through the building. The glass bowed inward. The corridor filled with pressure. My nose began bleeding. The fifth door slammed shut. The reflected Soren vanished. Behind the glass, the many eyes pulled away into black water. The shutter dropped over Tank D. With a deafening metal crash, I felt more than heard. The blue lights returned. The black key melted in my hand into cold salt water. And from behind the now covered Tank D glass, 42 wet hands pressed once against the inside, then disappeared. For a few seconds, I stayed on my knees in front of Tank D, holding my empty hand where the black key had melted into salt water. 42 wet handprints faded from the inside of the shutter. Not all at once, one by one, small hands, adult hands, a few with rings, one with a watch still strapped to the wrist, one tiny palm low on the metal, about the size of a child's. Then they were gone. The abyssal gallery was silent, not safe, never safe, but silent in a way it had not been before. The whale song inside my ear protectors faded until all I could hear was my own breathing, too loud and too fast, bouncing around inside the padded cups. I did not take them off. I did not stand yet either. The black water behind Tank D shifted once, very far away. Something enormous moved deeper, not closer, and I kept my head low until the pressure in the hallway eased. Soren's extra instruction replayed in my mind. If you hear something large move in water, and every tank near you is dry. Kneel. The tanks were not dry, but I was not going to test whether the thing behind tank D cared about wording. When I finally stood, I kept my eyes on the floor. No reflections, no glass, no fifth door. Just the wet blue floor of the abyssal corridor and my own shoes leaving prints in the thin layer of salt water. I moved backward at first, away from tank D, one slow step at a time. Tank C was to my right now. I knew that because I had passed it on the way in, but I refused to look at the glass. It had been empty before. Empty tanks were worse than full ones in that place. Full tanks at least told you where the danger was. A soft thump came from tank C. I kept walking. Another thump. Then a child whispered through the glass, so close it seemed to come from beside my ear. "Mom?" I closed my eyes. No. The child in the yellow raincoat had used that voice. The dead in the touch tide pool had used small hands. The deep tanks knew exactly which sounds made people forget rules. I opened my eyes and stared at the floor. "Night security," I whispered. Not because it had used my name, because I needed to remind myself what I was. Not rescuer, not tour guide, not parent, not judge, night security. My job was not to save what the tanks showed me. My job was to keep the doors locked. That thought felt cruel. Maybe because it was. Maybe because that was how Soren had survived. The floor trembled. Tank B came next. The upside-down diver was still there. I saw only one gloved hand floating near the edge of my vision, bumping gently against the glass from the inside. Tap, tap, tap. Instruction 3. Do not tap on any glass, even empty tanks. I did not tap back. The diver's hand curled into a fist, then pointed toward the end of the corridor, toward where the fifth door had been. I did not look. I kept walking. Tank A was last. Hundreds of tiny lights moved behind its glass. At first, they stayed scattered in the dark water. Then they gathered, not into a word, a face. No, many faces made of points of light, overlapping each other in the blackness. I walked faster. The blue corridor stretched longer than it had been before. The open gallery doors should have been only 20 feet ahead. Now they seemed 50, then 100. The floor sloped downward beneath my feet. No emergency signs, no downward arrows, no following anything down. I stopped. The hall kept stretching. The blue lights hummed. Behind me, Tank D's shutter made a slow metallic sound. Not opening, settling, like a locked door being tested from the other side. I looked at the floor directly in front of my shoes. Salt water ran along the corridor, uphill, toward the exit. Instruction 17. If salt water runs uphill, step onto the nearest bench until it drains. There was no bench in the abyssal gallery, but there was a small metal service step bolted beneath Tank B's control panel. A maintenance foothold, barely wide enough for both feet. I stepped onto it. The water streamed past me, flowing uphill toward the open doors, then stopped. It gathered in the middle of the corridor, rose, shaped itself, ankle, knee, torso, head. A figure made of salt water stood between me and the exit. It had no features. Then it borrowed Soren's. His face formed in the water, clear and rippling. He mouthed words I could not hear through the ear protectors. That made it easier not to answer. The water Soren pointed toward Tank D, then toward the fifth door, then placed both hands together, begging. I shook my head. His face changed, not melting, rearranging. The little girl in the yellow raincoat, then the woman from the ticket window, then my ex-wife. That one almost broke me. Not because I wanted to go back, because guilt doesn't need love to have a voice. Her watery face looked at me with the exact tired disappointment I remembered. She mouthed, "You always leave." I gripped the pipe beside the service step. No, that was not her. That was the aquarium learning the shape of blame. The figure collapsed. Salt water splashed across the floor, then drained under the gallery doors. The corridor returned to its proper length. I stepped down and moved. When I reached the open abyssal doors, I stopped. The chain and 5 padlocks still lay on the floor outside. Instruction 23. If the deep gallery doors are open, do not close them from the hallway. Return to security and call Soren. I had already called Soren. He had sent me in, or something had, or both. I stood at the threshold, inside the gallery, looking at the chain. If I stepped out, would I count as being in the hallway? Would closing the doors from just outside break the rule? Would leaving them open be worse? The aquarium gave me the answer in the worst possible way. The intercom clicked. Even through the ear protectors, I felt it more than heard it. A muffled announcement rolled through the building. Then the doors began closing by themselves, slow, heavy. I jumped through the opening just before they met. The steel doors slammed behind me. The chain lifted from the floor like a snake, wrapped itself through the handles, and tightened. 1 padlock clicked, then another, 3, 4. The 5th padlock hovered in the air for a moment. It was black, wet. The one that should not exist. It clicked shut, too. I backed away. The blue light under the doors went out. My knees nearly failed. Then the intercom panel in the main hall crackled. This time, I took off 1 ear protector, just enough to hear. A calm, recorded voice said, "Abyssal Gallery tour concluded." Static. Then a child's voice whispered, "Group returned incomplete." The 5th padlock rattled. I put the ear protector back on and ran. The main hall had changed while I was inside. Every tank held water now. The coral reef tank, the mangrove nursery, the jellyfish cylinders, the touch tide pool, even the empty display windows along the hall. Water pressed against glass that should have opened into dry exhibit rooms. Fish moved in some. In others, only shadows. The front lobby lights were on. I could see them from the main hall. Bright white, ticket windows glowing. Instruction 2. Do not look through the ticket windows. I turned my head away and went straight for security. The security office was dry again. The floor showed no footprints, no flood marks, no melted black key. Only 1 wet handprint remained on the inside of the observation window. Small, low, a child's. Instruction 20 said if a wet handprint appeared on the inside of the security office window, shut the blinds and count the keys. The blinds were already shut. I counted the keys. South door, security office, utility closets, turtle room, filtration level, exterior gates, 6, no black key. I counted again, 6. Then I called Soren. The radio hissed. Nothing. "Soren," I said. Static. "Security to Soren." Nothing. Then the old ticket printer buzzed. A ticket slid out. This one was not for the Abyssal Gallery. It read, "Staff exit, South Door 1. Use only under that. Valid until 3:33 a.m. I checked the clock. 3:21. I almost grabbed the ticket, then stopped. Instruction 1. Enter and leave, only through the south staff door after sunset. That part matched, but nothing in the instructions said I needed a ticket to leave. A place that offers a ticket usually expects you to use it, and if you use it, It gets to decide where it takes you. I left the ticket in the printer. At 3:24, the south staff door camera flickered. Soren stood outside. At least, he looked like Soren. He was soaked from head to toe, hair plastered to his forehead, Pelican Point jacket dark with seawater. He stood under the buzzing security light, one hand against the door, looking directly into the camera. He did not use the radio. That made him more convincing. He lifted a laminated badge toward the camera. Soren Pike, Facilities Manager. Then he turned the badge around. On the back, written in black marker, "Ask me." I pressed the intercom button for the south door. The speaker crackled. "What happened to Tank D?" Soren looked relieved. He said, "It opened during the sleepover." I closed my eyes. The same answer. But the thing inside the radio had known part of that too. I needed more. "How many people?" 42. "What did you do?" His face tightened. I locked the deep gallery doors from the outside. "Why?" He looked away, then back. "Because something wearing a diver suit was crawling out behind them." The answer came too fast to be invented, too ugly to be bait. I unlocked the south staff door remotely. The camera showed him enter. A minute later, I heard his boots in the staff corridor. He reached the security office and stopped outside. He did not knock. He waited. That mattered. I opened the door. Soren stood there dripping onto the floor, shivering hard. His left arm was wrapped in a towel dark with blood. In one hand, he held a waterproof case. His eyes went immediately to the monitors. "The fifth lock? On the doors." He nodded grimly. "It counted you." "What?" "The deep gallery started with 4 tanks, 4 locks, 4 pressure doors. When something inside recognizes a staff member as part of the system, it adds a lock." "I'm not staff. You took the shift. That cannot be enough." He gave me a look. "It always is." The ticket printer buzzed again. A second staff exit ticket slid out beneath the first. Soren glanced at it. "Don't use those." I figured. He opened the waterproof case. Inside were paper files sealed in plastic, a key card, a small handheld recorder, and a folded site map older than the public aquarium. He spread the map on the desk. It showed Pelican Point before the renovations that never opened. The public galleries were familiar. The Abyssal Gallery was marked in red. 4 tanks. A, B, C, D. Behind Tank D, in a section not shown on the public map, was a large blank space labeled Pressure Access / No Public Entry. Beyond that was a dark printed rectangle with no label. "What is that?" I asked. Soren rubbed his face. "The reason the building exists." "I thought this was an aquarium." "It is." "Soren." He looked exhausted. Pelican Point was built over a flooded naval test chamber from the 1960s. Pressure research, sonar, deep water equipment. Nobody wanted to demolish it because no one wanted to explain why it was there. The aquarium developers bought the land cheap. They were told the sealed chamber was stable. And it wasn't. It was stable until we connected Tank D to it. I stared at the blank rectangle. "You connected an aquarium tank to a military test chamber?" "I didn't. Engineers did. Contractors, donors, people with money and schedules. I was assistant facilities then. I signed off on pump tests. That was my part." He tapped Tank D. Tank D wasn't an exhibit. It was supposed to simulate deep sea pressure for research partnerships, a showpiece later. But during the sleepover, the isolation gate failed. It opened. He nodded. Not outward. Inward. Tank D became a door into the old chamber. and something in the chamber had been waiting in pressure and dark for a very long time. The security office window creaked. The small, wet handprint faded. Another appeared beside it. Then another, children's hands. Soren swallowed. The public story said flood, panic, structural issue. Some people were found, some weren't. The center closed for renovations and never reopened. 42? 29 children, 8 parents, 5 staff. The number settled in my chest like cold water. 42 wet hands. And you locked them in. His face crumpled. Yes. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then the intercom clicked. A child's voice whispered, "Mr. Pike left first." Soren closed his eyes. I did. The observation window began fogging from the main hall side. Letters appeared in the condensation. Open D. No, I said. The letters smeared. Then new words formed. Let us out. Soren picked up the handheld recorder from the case. What is that? Last recording from the sleepover. Why would you bring that? Because it remembers the right order. Order of what? He looked at the deep gallery camera. The locks. The 5th padlock on the monitor glistened wetly. 1 through 4 are physical. 5 is recognition. If we remove only the 5th, the building stops counting you. If we remove all of them, Tank D opens again. Great. How do we remove the 5th? Soren held up the recorder. We play back the evacuation order from that night. I stared at him. That sounds like a terrible idea. It is. And the better idea? There isn't one. The intercom clicked again. This time, it used my voice. Staff exit valid until 3:33. The clock read 3:29. Soren grabbed my arm. It wants you out before the 5th lock settles. What happens if it settles? You become part of the night procedure. I thought of the instructions written by aquarists, facilities, and security. Different hands, different shifts, survivors, or not. At 3:31, we left the security office. I wore the black ear protectors around my neck, ready to pull them up. Soren carried the recorder and a ring of keys I had not seen before. Not deep gallery keys, he told me. Lockout keys, maintenance overrides. We moved through the main hall toward the abyssal doors. Every tank watched us. I know that sounds insane, but there is a difference between seeing fish move and feeling water pay attention. Beatrice the sea turtle floated in her rehab room doorway, not in the pool, in the doorway. She blocked it like a guard. She faced us. Good. We did not speak until we passed her. At the touch tide pool, small, wet hands gripped the mesh. Soren whispered, "Don't look down." I didn't. At the mural, the painted ocean had gone black. No diver, no light, only deep water. I looked away before it could become anything else. We reached the abyssal doors at 3:33 exactly. The staff exit tickets in the security office began printing non-stop. I heard the buzz from all the way down the hall. Ticket after ticket, exit after exit, a way out, over and over. Soren knelt in front of the padlocks, 5 of them. The first 4 were old brass, each stamped with a letter, A, B, C, D. The 5th was black metal, no letter, no keyhole. It pulsed faintly under the blue light. What do I do? I asked. Stand behind me. If I start unlocking A through D, stop me. How? Hard. He turned on the recorder. For a moment, only static. Then voices, children laughing, adults talking, a staff member giving instructions. Okay, everyone, Welcome to Pelican Point's Deep Sea Sleepover. In a few minutes, we'll begin our behind-the-scenes flashlight tour. Stay with your group leader. No running, no touching equipment, and remember, the Abyssal Gallery is not open tonight. A child cheered. Another asked about sharks. Soren's younger voice came through the recorder. All right, Group Blue, this way. The black padlock twitched. Soren kept the recorder close. The tape hissed. Then chaos. An alarm. A deep metallic boom. Children screaming. Water. So much water that the recording distorted. A woman yelled, "Get them back!" A man shouted, "Tank D!" Then Soren's younger voice panicked, "Seal the gallery! Seal it now!" The black lock shuddered. Soren's hand shook. The recording continued. A child screamed, "Mom!" A woman screamed back. Then something huge moved in water. The sound came through the recorder, even though the speaker was tiny. The building answered. Every tank vibrated. I dropped to one knee. Soren stayed kneeling by the locks. The black padlock cracked. A thin line appeared down its center. The recording reached the part that broke him. His younger voice shouted, "I'm sorry! I'm sorry! I'm sorry!" Then the deep gallery doors slammed on the tape. One lock, 2, 3, 4, then silence. The black padlock split open. It fell to the tile. Water poured out of it. Not much. A small, impossible stream. Then it was empty. 4 locks remained. A, B, C, D. Soren turned off the recorder. For a moment, the aquarium was silent. Then all 42 voices whispered from behind the doors. Again. Soren reached for lock D. I grabbed his wrist. No, his eyes were full of tears. "They're still in there." "Not all of them." He tried to pull free. I held on. "Soren, what came out behind them?" He stopped. The 4 brass locks rattled. The doors breathed outward. The voices behind them changed. Children became adults. Adults became Soren. Soren became me. "Night security," my voice whispered from inside. "Open for evacuation." I tightened my grip. "No," Soren sagged. "I hear them every night." "I know." "No, you don't." He looked at the doors like they were the only thing in the world. "I hear them when I'm awake, when I'm driving, when I'm in the shower, when I try to sleep. I hear them asking why I locked the doors." The padlock marked D clicked once. Not open, just testing. I said, "Because something else was with them." He covered his face. The intercom clicked. A calm, automated voice said, "Deep gallery lock 5 removed, staff count restored." The chain settled. The 5th lock was gone. The door stayed closed. Soren started sobbing. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a man finally losing the strength to stand between guilt and a door. I helped him up. We backed away from the abyssal gallery. One step, then another. The doors did not open. The voices faded. At 4:02, Tank D knocked. Once, the sound rolled through the floor. Every remaining tank went dark. The aquarium was quiet. Soren wiped his face with both hands. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." He gave a weak laugh. For maybe 5 minutes, I thought we had finished it. Then the building map changed. The facility map beside the security office window began to ripple under its plastic cover. Hallways shifted. Exhibit labels slid around. The abyssal gallery moved from the far end of the main hall to the center of the map. Instruction 21. If the building map changes, copy the new route into the log before sunrise. "No," Soren whispered. "What?" He stared at the map. "It's rerouting the public path." The abyssal gallery was no longer behind locked doors on the map. It was now labeled Main Exit. The south staff door was gone. The lobby was gone. Every route led to the deep tanks. The building had accepted that it could not make me staff, so it was trying to make the deep gallery the way out. I grabbed the logbook. Soren caught my arm. "Don't copy that. The instruction says it wants the route official. Blank spaces get filled, maps make paths." I had learned that in too many places by then. I looked at the map again. "If I don't copy it, what happens?" Soren swallowed. "It keeps changing until someone does." The map rippled. The main hall bent. On the monitor, I saw the real hallway outside the office shift slightly. The bench slid an inch across the floor. The gift shop entrance narrowed. The deep gallery doors seemed closer. The building was following its own map. So I opened the logbook, not to copy what it showed, to write what had to be true. 4:08 a.m. Public route closed. Abyssal Gallery is not an exit. South Staff door remains only exit after sunset. Deep tanks remain locked. The map stopped moving, then shook violently under the plastic. The label main exit flickered. I wrote another line. Tank D closed. Lock 5 removed. Staff count restored. The security office window cracked. Soren grabbed the desk. I kept writing. No tour scheduled. No visitors admitted. No feeding. No unlocking. No group entry. The ticket printer screamed, not buzzed. Screamed. Paper shot out so fast it spilled across the floor. Admit 1. Admit 1. Admit 1. I wrote. All tickets void. The printer stopped. The map snapped back. Abyssal Gallery returned to the far end. South Staff door reappeared. The route was normal, mostly. A small black rectangle remained behind Tank D. The old chamber. It pulsed once, then went still. At 4:44, the lobby lights turned on again. Soren and I were back in the main hall by then, checking doors, checking floors, checking that the deep gallery chain still held 4 locks. The lobby lit up in rows of white. Instruction 2. Do not look through ticket windows. Soren immediately turned his back. I did too. The ticket window knocked. Tap, tap, tap. A woman said, 2 for the deep tour. No answer. Another voice. A man. We already paid. No answer. Then the little girl in the raincoat. My mom said I could go. Soren flinched. I put a hand on his shoulder. No. The girl knocked again. Mr. Pike? He closed his eyes. The voice softened. You left us. His body shook. I thought he might answer. Instead, he whispered, yes, not loud enough for the window, only for himself. The lobby lights went out. At 5:10, the sky beyond the staff corridor began to pale. Not sunrise yet, but close. The aquarium felt less aggressive in that gray hour. The tanks still held water where they shouldn't. The air still smelled too deep. But the building had started pulling itself back into its daytime shape. Soren said, you should leave at sunrise. What about you? I'll stay until day crew arrives. There is no day crew. He nodded. Then until it's safe to leave. That doesn't mean anything. It does here. We returned to security. The logbook lay open. A new line had appeared under mine. Not in my handwriting, not Soren's. Small block letters, like a child learning to write. Group still inside. Soren saw it and went completely still. I said, don't. He touched the page. The ink smeared water. I can't leave them in there forever. You don't know what they are now. His face hardened. That's the excuse I use when I want to sleep. Soren. He looked at me. Some were still alive when I locked it. There it was, the truth under the truth. Not all dead, not all gone, some alive. some banging on the doors while he held them shut. The aquarium heard him say it. The deep gallery doors groaned in the distance. "Soren," I said carefully, "if you open those tanks, whatever came through Tank D comes with them." "I know." "Then what are you thinking?" He sat slowly in the security chair. "I'm thinking I don't deserve a locked door between me and the sound." The intercom clicked. A woman's voice said, "Soren?" He covered his ears, not with protectors, with his hands like a child. The voice said, "Why did you lock us in?" The black ear protectors hung beside the monitors. I grabbed them and put them over his ears. He didn't fight me. The woman's voice became muffled, but I still heard enough. "Open D." I went to the intercom panel and muted channel 3. Click, wait, click, wait, click. Silence. Soren looked up at me through the ear protectors. I pointed to the sunrise beginning on the staff door monitor. "Leave." He shook his head. I grabbed the recorder from his case and placed it in front of him. "Then leave with the truth." He stared at it. "The recording doesn't save them," he said. "No, but maybe it stops you from letting the thing that killed them use their voices." He cried again then. This time, no voices interrupted. At 6 o'clock, the south staff door unlocked automatically. The shift was over. The aquarium lights changed. Not bright, not public open, but morning maintenance mode, white instead of blue. The tanks dimmed. The lobby stayed dark. The deep gallery doors remained chained with 4 locks. No 5th. Soren walked me to the south staff exit. At the door, he handed me the night procedures folder. I refused. "No. You wrote in the log. No. You removed lock 5. No. You know what to add." That stopped me. He was right. The rules were incomplete. They always were. I took the folder and opened to the final page. There was space after instruction 27. My hand hurt as I wrote. Instruction 28. If a 5th padlock appears on the abyssal gallery doors, the building has counted you as staff. Remove only the 5th lock. Do not touch A, B, C, or D. Instruction 29. If a ticket says group entry, burn it before the ink dries. Instruction 30. If the map labels the abyssal gallery as an exit, write the correct route in the log. Do not copy the false one. Instruction 31. Tank D did not crack. Tank D opened. Soren read the last line. His face folded inward, but he nodded. "Good." I almost told him not to say that. Instead, I stepped outside. Morning air hit me. Warm, humid, normal. My car sat where I left it. The parking lot was empty. The front of Pelican Point looked dead and harmless in daylight. The open front door was closed now, chained. Both of them. I turned back once. Soren stood in the staff doorway, framed by fluorescent light, holding the recorder in one hand and the night folder in the other. "Are you going to be okay?" I asked. He smiled faintly. "No." Honest answer. Then he shut the door. I drove away with the windows down, trying to breathe out the smell of salt water. I quit that morning. I didn't call, didn't text, didn't wait for payment. But that afternoon, money hit my account. 1 week's pay, then another deposit labeled Hazard Completion Bonus. I called the bank and asked if a sender name showed. The woman on the phone said it came from Pelican Point Marine Center. I told her that wasn't possible. She asked if I wanted to dispute it. I said no. I needed the money. That is always how these places leave hooks in normal life. A week later, Pelican Point's website changed. For the first time in 4 years, the temporarily closed notice disappeared. In its place was a new message. under new preservation review. No public access, no tours scheduled. The old smiling family photos were gone. So was the picture of the little girl pressing her hands to the turtle glass. Soren never answered my calls. I drove by once, 2 months later. The parking lot was blocked by new fencing. The dolphin sculpture had been removed. The faded sign was covered with a tarp. A truck from a marine salvage company sat outside the loading dock. The south staff door had been painted over. No handle, no scanner, no light. As I slowed near the front, my radio turned on by itself, static, then whale song. I pulled over and shut the car off. The radio kept playing. 3 clicks sounded through the speakers. Click, click, click. Then Soren's voice, faint and tired. Deep tanks locked. The radio died. I never went back, not physically, but sometimes I dream of the abyssal gallery. 4 tanks, A, B, C, D. A 5th door at the end that I refuse to count. In the dream, I'm always standing in front of tank D, staring at the shutter while something huge moves behind it. The black key is in my hand. Soren stands behind my reflection with 1 finger to his lips. And the 42 hands press against the metal, once, only once, then vanish. Last month, I received a package with no return address. Inside was a Pelican Point snow globe, a tiny aquarium building, a little dolphin sculpture, blue glitter frozen at the bottom. For 3 days, it sat still on my kitchen counter. On the 4th night, the water inside began to move. I turned it face down. In the morning, the globe was dry inside. No water, no glitter, just a tiny black padlock sitting where the aquarium building had been. I buried it in the yard without touching it directly. Maybe that was stupid. Maybe I should have thrown it in the ocean. But some things know how to swim back. I still think about Beatrice, the sea turtle. She was the only thing in that building that looked at me without wanting anything. Sometimes I check marine rescue pages, trying to see if she was transferred somewhere safe. I found one article about a rescued turtle from an unnamed closed facility being moved to a sanctuary. No photo, no details. I choose to believe it was her. I need one thing from that place to have left cleanly. I know Soren probably didn't. That is the part that stays with me, not the monster behind tank D, not the child in the raincoat, not the hands in the tide pool. Soren, because guilt is its own locked room, and sometimes people mistake staying near it for making amends. Maybe he's still there, maybe he became another instruction. Maybe some new night guard will one day open that folder and find his handwriting at the bottom of the page. If Soren Pike tells you to unlock tank D, ask what happened during the sleepover. If he says, pressure crack, keep the doors locked. If he says, it opened, remind him he already closed it. That would be a good rule. I hope someone writes it. So if you ever take a night shift at a closed aquarium, listen carefully. Do not tap on the glass. If jellyfish spell words, record only the first one. If the shark tunnel is supposed to be dry and water appears overhead, turn around. If a tank uses your name, answer with your job title only. If the map calls the deep gallery an exit, correct the map. And if you ever reach a locked wing where the lights glow blue under the doors, put on the black ear protectors before checking the cameras. The deep tanks stay locked for a reason. Not because everything inside them is dead, because some things inside them know how to sound alive. And if tank D ever opens again, the first thing it will do is ask for help.